Chapter 89. Destiny and Development of Man. The angel says, "Not at all. Things happen exactly as you have just very masterfully explained. Therefore, if the 30 brothers live diligently according to what they will hear very soon from these brothers of ours, they will soon become our brothers in all things. God gives to no angel and to no person, who is basically a prospective angel, more than a complete individual life, and the capabilities in this life to mould it by themselves to be as close as possible to the greatest divinity in all things. If a newly created angel, or likewise a person, knows the sure path on which he can always reach complete godlikeness, but he does not want to walk along it, well then, he has finally only himself to blame if he from then on remains in a death-like God unlikeness. Certainly, a perfect spirit may well never reach God in the most endless completion in all eternity. But that does him no harm, for one can still set everything in motion, of course constantly in the system determined by God, for whatever he may want. In the end, one can also call forth from oneself, like God, independent beings and give them an eternal free existence, and can then have great joy and blessings with such beings, just as an earthly father with his own children. And that is divinity to the extreme. I myself have already created several worlds with small suns, and completely populated them with my own beings. And all these worlds are often better equipped with everything than this earth of yours. Everything reproduces itself just as here, and the spirits there are capable of complete perfection just as here. And why shouldn't they be? For in the end, every spirit is from God, just as the seeds of the future plant have been already reproduced millions of times from out of the original seed. And since you, as descendants of Satan, still carry the Spirit of God in you, then how much more the descendants of our divine Creator? And see, you too can achieve all this if you will walk along the paths that are shown to you. But whoever of you does not want to walk along it will finally have only himself to blame if he remains in his death-like non-divinity for unthinkably long times. Therefore, none of you love the world and his own flesh more than his spirit. If each one concerns himself above all only with that which belongs to the Spirit, then he will soon receive that which belongs to the Spirit, namely, complete similarity to God. But whoever always concerns himself more with that of the world and of the flesh, he has only himself to blame for the fact that he remains in deathly darkness. All life can cross over continuously, go to an everlastingly more complete life, if it makes the effort to proceed along the road of the established divine order. But if life comes to a standstill, particularly at the beginning of the great path of life, well, then it will naturally go no further, and instead stops, and in the end withers away like a stalk in winter, once it has been freed of his fruit according to the order of God. Therefore, be as active as you can for the Spirit. Do not rue any step forward, for there every deed and every step is constantly accompanied by the highest blessing from God. Do not believe that I, as an angel, am already so perfect that I can now slip into complete inactivity, I now gain through this presence an endless amount, and will in the future be able to work even more perfectly for my own highest creations. But if I, as a pure and perfect spirit, can still gain so invaluably much, then how much more will you, who are so far behind me in perfection? Therefore, thank the Lord our God that He has led you into this holy, most merciful opportunity, in which you can do more for your spirit in 1 hour than in 10,000 years of your own worldly teaching. See, such great moments of mercy are only offered to this world by God very rarely. Therefore, everyone who has the great luck to be the witness of such an opportunity should use it with all his strength for his spirit. If God sends or awakes a prophet somewhere, then everyone should crowd around him and listen to him speak the word of God, for his greatest well-being. For God awakens such men only once in hundreds of years, in the great depth of the true wisdom of heaven. But very great prophets, through whom God informs the people of the earth of very many and great things, are sent to the people of this earth at most every 1,000 to 2,000 years. On the one hand, in order to show them in the greatest and most elaborated ways the further new paths of God towards even higher perfection, and on the other hand, to turn them away from the many false paths that they have made themselves, and to turn them onto the one right path. For see, in God's great creation, everything moves continually forwards, like time on the earth, which also never stands still. The spirits clearly always make great progress. But because in the kingdom of the pure spirits, such great progress occurs continually, the eternal beings on the heavenly bodies must not be left behind, so that they do not come to stand too far from the kingdom of the spirits. After the appearance of such great prophets, things go well for the people by their own doing, if not in general, then at least in specific areas. But when a great advance is again made in the spirit world, then it is no longer done with the somewhat shrouded light of a former great prophet. A new one is awakened and sent, and mankind follows once again, if at first only in exceptions, according to the great advance of the spirit world. But then humanity in a few centuries becomes more resourceful, and finally brings to light things about which the older generations had never dreamed. But when humanity has reached a sort of culmination after about 12 to 15 centuries, then it would become lethargic and would stop, as is permitted on this earth by God, so that there should always be every conceivable level of education. Thus, the more enlightened people should learn that without revelations from time to time, humanity would remain at the same point for thousands of years, and does not take a single step forward, as you can see with today's Indians and Southeast Asians. The Lord allows such things so that people who get there at some time can convince themselves that the situation is exactly as I have told you before. But you will finally educate these people in your descendants. For the Lord never awakens any great prophet for nations which are on a lower level of spiritual education. Instead, He lets them, that is, the uneducated people, follow suit through the main nations of the earth, which have been educated through revelations, for which the Lord has His own endlessly wise reasons. But people on the first level before God on a heavenly body should always recognize such a high calling most deeply and with gratitude, and then act diligently accordingly. Otherwise, it is to their own fault if they in the end sink below the Southeast Asians, who we would call Cynesians, and finally become as completely stupid as the animals. Tell me now, you 30 brothers, if you have understood all that clearly.